Hello and welcome to Global News Today, bringing you exclusive interviews with leading experts every weekday here on Al-Arabiya English. I'm Tom Burges Watson, coming up on the programme. On this, the first anniversary of the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad, we find out today how is that day being marked in Syria. And we ask, is everyone celebrating? And what's changed during these last 12 months? And what are the new leadership's key priorities? Lots to come in this edition. Hello and welcome to the programme. Now, all eyes are on Syria today as the country marks 1 year since the fall of Bashar al-Assad. Exactly 1 year ago today, on the 8th of December 2024, the Assad family's 53-year grip on power ended, bringing Ahmed al-Sharaa to the presidency. Well, Assad's 14 years in power were marked by a devastating civil war which pushed 6.8 million Syrians to flee the country, and it left more than 620,000 people dead. Well, fast forward to today, Syria is stepping back onto the global stage, socially and economically. Across the country, people are celebrating, even as Syria continues to grapple with some sectarian divisions and daunting tasks like rebuilding after more than a decade of war. Well, we're joined now by Ambassador Bassam Barabandi, who is in the Syrian Foreign Affairs Ministry. He joins us now from Damascus. Ambassador, thank you very much indeed for joining us on Al-Arabiya English. I'd like to just start by asking you, on this historic first anniversary, where were you when you got the news that Bashar al-Assad had fled Syria?
Tom, thank you very much. Actually, we were in DC with my colleagues, my friends, my family, and we were watching the TV like all the Syrians did at that time. And it was really very exciting news. It was like, like a dream. It was a beautiful dream. And here we are now, 1 year later, I'm in Damascus.
Yeah, I mean, you've got a really interesting story because you were a Syrian diplomat under Bashar al-Assad and you defected from the Assad regime in 2013. And you didn't just defect, you actually helped people in the opposition in a number of ways. You helped people flee persecution by Bashar al-Assad. So I just wonder, I mean, how surreal does it feel to think that Bashar al-Assad, after 54 years of his country his family leading the country, is no longer in power?
Look, I believe in the case. I believe that what's right is right, that what's wrong is wrong. That's why I defected. That's why I helped so many Syrians. So, I mean, all the civil society that I tried to help to flee Syria or to be run away from this Sadnaya jails and other things. So I believe in that cause. That I believe will be end. Even in the last, let's say, 16 months from now, when the old indicators that Assad is back to the international arena and he was accepted and so on and so forth, I was insisting this is not real. This cannot survive. This kind of regime, this kind of mentality, this kind of distractions cannot survive. And luckily I was right. And today, when I come back to Damascus, where he flee, like all other Syrian, when I came from flight from DC to Damascus, my flights, lately we get Syrian who came from Korea. People came from Norway, from Sweden, from England. We were literally coming from all over the world to celebrate this day. It was amazing. The flight is something like 200 passengers, and almost we have maybe 20 different passports on the flights. But again, what's right is right. This is the whole concept of life. What's right is right, and he wasn't right. He was never right. He had his regime. Today in Damascus, just to give you a little bit about feelings about the people. People are really happy. This is a very important point. There's big challenges, definitely big issues to think about it. But deep inside, when you look about the people in the street, people are relaxing, comfortable, believing in the future. They are really happy that there's no more Assad. We are really happy that we don't belong to the city of silence, city of walls, city of jails. People become acting normal. They are happy normally. They are acting normally. There's no more supervisions. All this kind of psychological pressure that it has been on Syria for the last 60 or 70 years, not anymore. That's the happiness, literally. I'm not saying it's that the situation is ideal. There's so many roads. There's no lights. The pollution is high, for example, but nobody cares. Literally, no one cares. People are really happy in the street. Big hopes, big hope for Syria. Tomorrow will be much better Syria than today.
Okay, and I just want to ask you, because Al-Arabiya has been circulating some videos that it obtained of Bashar al-Assad driving his car around. We don't know exactly what date they're from, but they reveal quite a lot about the character of the man. And I'm wondering what your reaction was when you saw those videos.
Look, what we saw in this video is just prove everything we were believing in him. When we say he's reckless, he's crazy, he's maniac, he doesn't care about his people, he doesn't care about the country, regardless of what slogans he's doing. He looked down to all the Syrians, regardless if they are loyal or non-loyal. When we used to say this, even the people who was with Assad or pro-Assad that time, they always criticize us. Today, they saw it themselves. The question is more for the people loyal to Assad, who defend Assad, rather than to the people who were against Assad. Because they saw it firsthand by his voice that he doesn't care. He not only he doesn't care, he has no respect to them, no respect of whatever sacrifice they were doing for him to stay in power. He's looking down for all his allies, for all his people, for all his community. That big shocking, I think, for them. If they knew that video 5 years ago, I think things will change 5 years ago. No one is worth it to die for this person, but he used everybody to survive. And today he's surviving. He has billions of dollars. He's living in Moscow, whereas all his community is really in very bad shape.
Right, and quite embarrassing for him being in Moscow, because one of the comments he made in those leaked videos was regarding the appearance of the Russian president, Vladimir Putin. I mean, do you think that's going to make his stay even more uncomfortable?
He should. I don't know. I think the best thing Russia can do is just send it back to Damascus. His crimes cannot be hid. Nobody can justify it. Even the Russian, they say we always support our allies. He is not that ally that need to be supported. He has a lot of blood, kind of stability in the Middle East, that this person and his regime, they should be in fair, transparent trials. Syrian people should know everything about this person, everything about these people, every activities they did, supporting ISIS, supporting Hezbollah, supporting Iran, the mass killing they did for Lebanese, for Syrian, for Palestinians, for Iraqis. Their blood is everywhere. They have American blood, they have European blood their hands, they have Syrian blood their hand. So we need transparent trial. We need international trials for this regime. It's literally to know what's happening, to know why this is happening. We don't deserve, as a Syrian or the people in the region, the kind of suffering we had. Look at what they did in Iraq, how many Iraqis were killed because of them, how many Syrian, the last 15 years only. Not forget about what Assad's father did in Hama or did for the Syrian community. What they did in Lebanon, the occupation of Lebanon, look how much they destroyed Lebanon, how many Palestinians were killed, and so on and so forth. I think it's for the history records. We need international, transparent trial for this person and all his family or his regime, literally to understand the scale of damage, the scale of destruction they did to not only for Syria and the whole region as a whole.
What have we learned during these last 12 months that we didn't already know about the Assad regime? People describe his regime as being a sort of a narco regime that derived a lot of its revenue from drug trafficking. It's been described as corrupt. It's been described as cruel. From all the evidence that we've managed to gather during the last 12 months, for example, the raid on Sednaya prison, the prison records, government records, what have we learned that we didn't know before about who Bashar al-Assad was and what he stood for?
I tell you something more different things. What we learned that the Syrian people loves lives. The Syrian people, they can live in coexisting. After Assad fall down, everybody was expecting to have a big massacres, a big civil war among Syrians. This didn't happen. It shows that Assad, even he tried his best to destroy the Syrian society, but the DNA of Syrian is overcome what Assad planned to do. He thought that Assad, when he flee Syria, that there will be literally a huge civil war among Syrian, among all this. But Syrian improved till today, after 1 year, that we are in much different place, much safer place than before. What he did, it's again, what we saw later on is just to prove what we know about the Sednaya scales, about Sednaya, all other things. Everybody was well known, well documented. When the Assad flee, we just have first-hand information about the document that already documented, like Caesar pictures. Everybody knows Caesar picture, know what happens, where it happens, who were in charge of that. Some people, they were skeptical that this is true, this is fake, this is whatever. After Assad flee, we saw that what Caesar shows us is literally nothing comparing to the reality. 2 days before, 3 days before, Reuters, I think, International Journalists Association investigation, they published something like more than 80,000 new case about people who were killed under Assad. What we know is exactly, again, we're back to the trial issue, international transparent trial issue. The scale of destruction that Assad did is far beyond what we know till today. The Pentagon that you mentioned till today, that it's not a secret, but it's not too much focus about the scale of that industry. The partners that they held him, the mafia, international mafia that held him. The Pentagon reached to Italy, reached to Brazil, reached to Central Asia. So it was made in Syria. So who are their partners? Where are they? So we have so many questions that we don't know. We know that guy has a flee. He take all his money. And that's mainly the things. But it needs too much digging, too much investigation, too much to know really how bad the situation was, how bad he was integrated into the mafia life rather than a statehood life. It's big challenges for Syria, but again, when I come to Syria, when I meet with people, normal people, we people who live in diaspora, we have the leverage of thinking. We have leverage of thinking about what should be done, what should not be done. We are far away. When I came here, I had a few hours. People don't care. People are really happy. They feel Assad has done. We have a new phase, new chapters. We want to enjoy it. We want to build our Syria. We want to have civil within ourselves, peaceful within our own societies. People, they believe in al-Sharaa, that he is the person who will take Syria to right place. People supporting him. Big hope for next year. The Caesar, all the sanctions will be waived by the end of this year, all kinds of sanctions, Caesar and other US sanctions on Syria. So tomorrow will be better, inshallah, for Syria and Syria.
Okay, and just lastly, Ambassador, I want to ask you, a lot has happened during these last 12 months. This time a year ago, we were watching with disbelief the scenes of people ransacking the presidential palace and tearing down portraits of Bashar al-Assad and Hafiz al-Assad, his father. In the last 12 months, what has stood out for you as being perhaps the most striking image, the most important sort of photographic moment of the last 12 months?
I think when the people, when they went to the president's house, they destroyed that narrative that this person untouchable, this regime untouchable. When they went to the presidency, to the palace, that the symbolic of the state, the security state, when they went to Hafiz Assad graveyard in Kurdaha. And that things that shows that this regime has collapsed, that shows that there's no more fear, that the people will overcome the dictatorship. That's really the end. That was the real. If you are watching the movie, that was the last scene. That this dictatorship, this is the fear government, fear regime has collapsing. When the people, the normal people, they were not armed, they were just neighbors, or living around that place, when they stormed the presidency and they stormed the Assad graveyard in his town, Kurdaha. That was the end of the movie. That was the end of that chapters. And that was really the turning point that we're still living till today.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. Ambassador Bassam Barabandi, thank you very much indeed for your time, sir. Well, we're joined now by Dr. Radwan Ziadeh, who is a senior fellow at the Arab Center in Washington. He joins us now from Doha. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to join us, Dr. Ziadeh. I'd just like to start by asking you, you're a Syrian national. What was the reaction you had, and where were you when you got the news this time a year ago that Bashar al-Assad had fled the country?
First, thank you for having me. It's, of course, it's a historic moment. Everyone actually remember, because it means a lot for him personally and mean a lot for his own national country. I was in Washington. I was following the news. I haven't slept in the last 48 hours. To be honest, when got closer to December 8th, no one expected. Maybe everyone expected something big will happen in Damascus, but no one expected that as Bashar al-Assad will flee the country and that the opposition will be able to enter the capital without any casualties, without any displacement, without any refugees. It's been very, very harsh 14 years of war between the Bashar al-Assad forces and the opposition forces. And we saw Bashar al-Assad, he used everything possible to kill Syrian civilians and to kill and destruct cities and towns all over the country.
Indeed, and Dr. Ziadeh, you've written about the quick collapse, the sudden collapse of Bashar al-Assad's regime, and the military and security services as well all disappeared in a very short space of time. I mean, 12 months on from those events, what have we learnt about why it was so sudden and so quick?
You're right. I written actually, and those four different factors played a critical role in the falling of the Assad regime. Of course, Russia, first factor, was very busy in Ukraine. Has nothing to do more with the helping and popping up Assad government. Iran got defeated along with the Hezbollah. Hezbollah was the major force on the fighting on behalf of the Assad, especially in the north, in the city of Aleppo, where the opposition entered on November 27th. Hezbollah was defeated by bombarding by Israel, and the leader of Hezbollah got killed. But after spending 8 months on Syria and meeting different people, traveling all over the country, I think the main critical factor was what we call the political economy of the Assad regime. The Assad regime became inside. Every soldier is only got $6 to $7. It's not worth fighting for. This is why the country got more poorer, and the Assad forces they live in extreme poverty, and they don't have any reason to fight for. Basically, the videos that Al-Arabiya shown in the last 2 days, it's a great proof for the fourth factor about the morale. You see the leader of the country hate his own country, hate his own people. No one believes that he will get into the mindset of Bashar al-Assad as he will get in those videos. Very important in criminal aspect, and in also in analyzing how the Assad regime fall quickly, because when you see that the whole leadership is corrupt, they hate their own country, hate on their people. This is why the people under Bashar al-Assad, they have no reason to fight on his behalf.
Right, and I was going to ask you about those newly leaked videos that Al-Arabiya has obtained. I mean, some people are saying that they were not shocking to people who disliked the Assad regime, but they were particularly shocking to Assad loyalists. Would you agree with that?
Shocking for both. I've been following the Syrian news for almost 30 years. I've been written almost 20 books in Arabic and in English on Syria. I still actually, my eyes full of tears when I saw the videos. Because if you live in a country just for a few days as a tourist, you have something in connection to that country. How actually you are a leader in a country, and you lived in a country, born in a country, and you are a leader of the country for 25 years, and you have such much hate to your own country. He described the country as disgusting. He always say, I got surprised when people talking about the greatness of Syria. That Syria is too much history, too much civilization there. To have a leader such that who rule the country, govern the country for 25 years, it's very sad to every Syrian who believe in his country and who love his country.
Right, and of course, him and his family ruled Syria for 54 years. They're rumored to have billions of dollars. One of Bashar al-Assad's cousins is rumored to be somehow plotting some kind of an armed return or armed effort to return to Syria. Have you heard those reports, and do you think they're credible?
I heard those reports, but I can tell you, I've been visiting Latakia and Tartus, and I'm going maybe this week again and again. His Alawite also people, they hate him, as you mentioned. Actually, they got also surprised by about how much he's on about his person, about his character, nothing about the country, and this is why they need to sacrifice their lives. I don't think that's what the remnant of the Assad regime, or we call them al-Fulul, has any reason to continue fighting or any reason to let's say, bring Assad back. His chapter is done in the history of Syria, was very, very sad chapter. He left the country in destruction. We need, according to the World Bank, more than $400 million to be able to do the reconstruction. And we need years of social reconstruction because of the Assad divisive sectarian ruling in the last 50 years, the Assad senior and the Assad junior. This is why, no, I'm not afraid about the Assad remaining or his cousin. I saw those part of the past, and Syria now is looking for the future.
Bashar al-Assad had a well-oiled propaganda machine, and he was a master of distorting the truth and pumping out fake news. I'm wondering whether you've seen evidence of any remnants of that propaganda machine and any efforts to sow tensions, sow discord in Syria with disinformation campaigns. Has that been an issue these last 12 months?
I think the videos of Al-Arabiya showed exactly how he cares about his image outside. He's been asking his advisor, Luna, almost every second, do we need this? We should do this? What do you think about that? I mean, I'm shocked about the videos because if he turned on the TV or any TV, credible report, of course, Al-Arabiya or anyone, we'll see exactly how his image is inside and outside. But he's been out of reality. He's been actually ruling that's maybe disillusioned that people continue to love him despite of he hating them. And this is why I think this is the mindset of dictator in his last days. We saw Hitler before. I wrote something on my Facebook account that's comparing Nero, that's the fifth empire in the Roman Empire, and the Assad, when they actually enjoying burning his own country to see how it's beautiful, but the Assad destroying his own and burning his own country, not because he wants to like the city, but because he hates his own country.
So much has happened, Dr. Ziadeh, these last 12 months. I mean, one of the main highlights for me was seeing President Ahmed al-Sharaa being received in the Oval Office of the White House. He became the first Syrian president to be accorded such a welcome. How much of a turning point did that represent to you?
Of course, thanks to the regional who's been carrying on the Syrian transition, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Turkey. Those three countries, we can call them actually the regional hub, who's carrying on the transition and trying to help the Syrian government. It's remarkable that to see the Syrian president, Ahmed al-Sharaa, met with the American president 3 times in less than 9 months. This is a record. And maybe in a few days, we'll celebrate the lifting of the Caesar sanctions. That's the sanctions has been lifted in a year. That's a record time compared to other countries who have that sanction is. But now it's a time maybe to change our discourse, not to focus on the sanctions. The international community, when decided to lift the sanctions, is not giving Syria a favor. Now we should focus on how the international community can help the reconstruction in Syria. Syria, it's 90% under poverty line. It needs help. It needs support to be able to recover, and it's be able to go back to the international community. And this is why it's much needed to help, and it's much needed to do a social reconstruction and a rebuilding. Otherwise, maybe we'll expect a social or political unrest in the coming years if there is no real reconstruction done in Syria.
Just lastly, Dr. Ziadeh, there have been some examples of violence in Syria during the course of the last 12 months. There have been some tensions. But I mean, after 14 years of war, after 54 years of Assad regime leadership, I mean, many would say that it's inevitable that there would be some scars and some divisions. But all things considered, how would you say that the country has fared during these last 12 months?
I will give actually the transitional government a B+. They done fantastic job in keeping the stability, keeping the country in such difficult time, relatively stable. You can travel, you can actually spend your night at Damascus at the midnight, return to your house, and nothing happened. Of course, in some area was unfortunate, especially in the coastal area, in the Suwaida. But that's exactly, it's alarming. That's how much we need to build a design, a political system. Can every Syrian fit that he or she can fit in? Pluralism is a key factor. Minorities is a key factor in Syria. And you need to build a political system, a democratic system, to be able, everyone to feel that he has a part of it and he thus can contribute to the future of Syria.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it. Dr. Radwan Ziadeh.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Well, let's get more on the humanitarian situation in Syria and also the latest on the ground. We can speak to Mathieu Rouquet, who is the Mercy Corps country director for Syria. He joins us now from the country's commercial capital, Aleppo. Thank you very much indeed for speaking to us once again here on Arabiya English, Mathieu. Today is, of course, the first anniversary of the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad. There have been official celebrations, there have been unofficial celebrations, people hooting their horns, waving the new flags. How would you describe the mood today?
The mood is electric, Tom. Clearly, you can feel the joy, you can feel the relief, you can feel the excitement of a country united in its newly gained freedom. It's an extraordinary moment to be inside Syria and to be amidst Syrians in this very special moment.
Thanks for that intro, Mathieu. Now, the Mercy Corps, for the benefit of our viewers, is a global non-governmental humanitarian aid organization. And I just wanted to ask you about something you wrote about 6 months ago. You said this. You said many Syrian families have an unclear path forward. Millions of displaced people who wish to return have no home to return to, no functioning water systems, no jobs, no schools or medical clinics, no safety nets. Now, 6 months have passed since he wrote that. Have things improved at all?
Things have improved slightly, but the path is very long to finding suitable livelihoods, energy access, demining, job opportunities for millions of Syrians. So while there has been tangible progress, the dividends of the revolution still need to be paid.
Right, and a lot of the country's infrastructure was destroyed during 14 years of violence. Is there much evidence of reconstruction underway, or are we not quite there yet?
There is some progress that we can see, but as you said, the toll of 14 years of war and decades of mismanagement are staggering, and it will take a lot of time. It will take probably decades for the country to rebuild. But we are seeing some improvements. We are seeing a drive. We are seeing the international efforts supporting Syria with precisely those major infrastructure investments, but so much has to be done that it's not there yet.
And as the Mercy Corps, what are your priority areas at this particular moment? What are you mainly focused on doing?
Well, right now it's important for us as an aid organization to maintain a strong humanitarian response capacity, to be able to respond quickly to rapid onset disasters, be they man-made or natural. But of course, for us, it's also the understanding that most of humanitarian needs in the country today actually require a development response, a long-term response. So we are focusing on partnering with the private sector and de-risking private investment inside Syria especially in agriculture, in water and sanitation, to bring kind of more sustainable solutions to the table. So restarting agriculture, demining is a key priority of ours. Creating jobs in those value chains is the core strategy that we have at the moment.
Now, for people who've been to Aleppo, they'll know it is the sort of the beating heart of the Syrian economy. It's a commercial crossroads and has been for centuries. Are you starting to see a return to commerce and trade, and are people starting to find jobs and opportunities in this new economy, Mathieu?
Yes and no. We hear some positive stories, but we also hear a lot of people coming back, scoping the market, looking at opportunities, but there are still a lot of barriers to entry. And part of our job is precisely to lower these barriers to entry for those private investment and for that capital to flow back into the country again, and to enable it to kickstart the economy in a much more productive way. So we are seeing some signs, but as with everything else, a lot more remains to be done.
Right, and for people thinking about returning to Syria, perhaps people who've been living abroad as refugees, I mean, they're going to think carefully about coming back, and they'll want to know that the security situation is suitable for them to return to with perhaps their families as well. What is the security situation, would you say, in Aleppo, which is where you know best?
Well, I spend the day in the streets amidst Syrians celebrating, and I've never felt that safe in a country before, and this is my experience throughout Syria. Obviously, my experience is one of a privileged international guest of the country, and I realize that for many Syrians, this is not the case, right? We have seen, sectarian violence in many parts of the country, on the coast, in Sweda. The unresolved political settlement with the self-administration in the northeast remains a very worrying bone of contention in the country. But for the most part, I have to echo your previous guest in saying that Syria is safe. It's safe to travel, and the number of security incidents really are focused in some specific areas, or rather isolated in nature, although are indeed very, very worrying, and demonstrate a fragmented security map and centralized authority on that regard.
I mean, it's often said that a very high percentage of the Syrian population is still highly dependent on aid. I don't know if you've got an accurate or updated figure for us. Are you seeing things improve on that front?
Well, to use the example of people that were displaced internally, we had 2.2 million a year ago when the previous regime fell. We are now still have 1.2 million people in displacement, right? So only 1 million decided to return to their areas of origin, so roughly 40%. And we still have 17 million of Syrians dependent on humanitarian aid, 90% under the poverty threshold. So it's a real staggering figure demonstrating that the need for immediate aid, but also long-term aid, remain critical in the country.
And is international interest being maintained in the sense that, is that helping with fundraising appeals and so on? Are people still focused on Syria, or is this something that runs the risk of perhaps being forgotten about or buried under, some of the other conflicts taking place in the world today?
Well, Tom, I believe that we also have to recognize the competing domestic pressures that many of our traditional donor countries, especially in the West, are currently facing. Those are tough realities that we have to deal with, and we have also to use and turn these crises into opportunities to design better aid solutions that do bring in the private sector, that do bring in blended finance models in order to precisely address these funding gaps and provide more sustainable solutions for Syrians in need.
And just lastly, I want to ask you, I don't know if you've seen the videos, and I know you're not a political figure, you're a humanitarian figure, but I wondered if you'd seen the videos that Al-Arabiya has been circulating that show President Bashar al-Assad driving around, we don't know exactly when, but some time ago, sort of making rather disparaging comments about his country and its people. I'm just wondering how much discussion that's generated in Syria in the last couple of days.
I've seen the video, Tom. I haven't exchanged on it with Syrians. I think they're really focusing on looking forward, on the hope that is tangible in the street, despite the hardships of life. Their focus is to go forward and working together as a united country for a better future. And I can only join them in that.
All right, that's all we have time for. Mathieu Rouquette, Mercy Corps Country Director for Syria. Thank you for your time. Well, we're joined now by Hazem Al-Ghabra, who's a Syrian-born former senior advisor to the US State Department. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, Hazem. You were born in Damascus, I gather, and I just want to ask you, what was your reaction this time a year ago when you got the news that Bashar al-Assad had fled the country?
Surprised, happy. I mean, I grew up under that regime. Not really much under Bashar al-Assad's regime. I was in the US most of that time, but under the Assad family regime, it was not a good existence. I mean, growing up, especially as a teenager, in such an oppressive environment, in every way possible. I mean, that oppression leaked into schools, into your daily life, into conversations you have with your own family sometimes. So it was a very happy moment, and really a moment of hope, because for a while we really thought Syria will never change, and now there is a tangible opportunity for tangible change to the better, and we're seeing it happen right now.
Right. I mean, it did look at one point as though Bashar al-Assad was never going to be ousted, and it took a lot of people by surprise. And, you know, in your own family, there's an anecdote, isn't there, of falling foul of the Assad regime. Your mum was a TV presenter based in Washington, working for Syrian state TV, and her show suddenly got cancelled, and team members were fired because what? She didn't get prior permission for interviewing someone. What happened?
Such an interesting story. So this is back during a period that was dubbed the Spring of Damascus. You know, this was almost two and a half decades ago now. But for a little while, there was hope for change, for positive change. I think Bashar thought maybe we open up the society a little bit, create some minor reform, a lot of more token reform, but most of that was stemming from fears as the Iraq war was ramping up. And he was concerned that the US operation will expand into Syria. So he wanted to do a few touch-ups to just make a point that, you know, his pro-reform. Anyhow, my mother had a TV show called Transatlantic by contract with the Syrian National Television, mainly to present or to interview Americans, align points of view, and bring the American perspective into Syrian society. It was a great idea, to be honest, and the show was doing pretty well till she visited Damascus and interviewed the US ambassador to Damascus. The interview was not controversial in any way, shape, or form. There was a conversation about peace in the Middle East. And I think the US ambassador was somewhat critical of the Syrian role, and especially in the Israeli-Arab conflict. Not too critical, but he made a comment. Somehow, censorship did not notice that phrase. My mother came back through Washington. We were sitting, and this is back, this is 2003, I think, 2000. Around that time, we're watching on a small CRT monitor, the very blurry web stream of the Syrian television. All of a sudden, 10 minutes into the show, screen goes to black. Nothing. 4 hours. Nothing. Then the broadcast resumes hours later. Obviously, we pick up the phone. We try to contact people at the television. No answers. No, including the head of the television was not answering his phone. Next morning, we wake up to newspaper articles, specifically the Future newspaper out of Lebanon, the Hariri family's newspaper. And the headline was "A Massacre in the Syrian Television, 16 directors fired over the show." This is how ridiculous that regime has always been. For a phrase uttered by an American ambassador that he's solely responsible for, they end up firing half of the television and obviously canceling my mother's show. Probably every moment in Syria had a token anecdote of oppression, censorship, and hostility toward the Syrian citizen by the government.
And Hazem, from that point onwards, did you and your mother refrain from going back to Syria? Did you feel it was dangerous for you to go back to Syria?
She never went back. She definitely did not go back. I went, once in 2010 for 8 hours for a wedding, and that was it for me as well. Unfortunately, it's a place that if you are even attempting to be an activist in that country in any way, shape, or form, you're rewarded by very bad memories, and memories that make it very hard to go back.
Okay, just watching what we've learned during these last 12 months, the prisons that have been opened, the documents that have surfaced and come to public attention. What do you think we've learned about the realities of the Assad regime? Just how bad were they as people?
I guess one of the best examples I've seen were the videos released by al-Arabiya the past few days of Bashar Assad's conversations with his advisor. The only parallel I can think of is Emperor Nero in the year 64, while Rome was burning, and he's just playing his fiddle. The detachment from reality. I mean, we're talking about the president of the country here, with his senior advisor, driving through the rubble that was a direct result of his actions. And he seems like a foreigner. He seems unaware or detached completely from what's happening. It's very, very, it's hard to explain, to be honest. This person felt no responsibility, no remorse, the conversation they were having as if he has no role in what happened or what's about to happen in the future. It's hard to understand. I think it's going to take years. And, as Syria engages further in the transitional justice, the work needed, obviously interviewing the commanders during that time, I don't think Assad had control at some point. He lost control. Probably around 2013, 2014, he was involved, but he did not lead the country anymore. The military security apparatus that he created or he supported started taking a greater role beyond what he can control at that point. It's very interesting. It's, but all of dictatorships end up this way. And people go back and ponder, how did such person oppress the masses? How did such incapable individual threaten the lives of millions, not only in Syria, but in neighboring countries as well. How did he become a drug kingpin at some point? All these questions are very worthy of pondering.
Yeah, I mean, a lot has happened in the last 12 months. I mean, some of the most striking moments have been in May, seeing the new president of Syria, President Ahmed al-Sharaa, being embraced by President Trump in Riyadh, and then being invited to the White House in November. I mean, has all of that seemed a bit surreal to you as a Syrian national living in Washington, seeing the first ever Syrian president being invited into the Oval Office?
Well, it was surreal for me as a Syrian citizen and also a former senior advisor at the Department of State. The speed of which the transition of Syria, especially the Syrian government, has had, specifically with the relationship with the United States, it's stunning. It's, you know, we always said the U.S. government is like an aircraft carrier. You cannot just turn it quickly. It takes time and effort and work to maneuver. But we have to admit here that, and we have to thank actually the government of Saudi Arabia and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman for his personal role and his government's role in helping Syria break out diplomatically. I mean, as you mentioned, the first meeting with President Trump happened in Riyadh. And we all know it's through direct request by Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. It's that meeting, I think, set Syria on the course where, you know, not only President Ahmed Bashar made it to Washington, but also enjoyed a very unique relationship with the largest and strongest country in the world right now. It's great. However, I think now that the sanctions are about to get fully lifted and the Caesar Act is about to be repealed, the real work begins in Syria. You know, where the Syrian people, whether in the country or abroad, are expecting quite a bit when it comes to education, political reform, social reform, economic reform, of course. I don't envy President Bashar. His work is definitely cut out for him.
Okay, it certainly is. Well, we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. We're out of time now. Hazem Al-Ghabra, thank you very much indeed for your time, sir. We're joined now by Ambassador James Jeffrey, former US Special Representative for Syria engagement under President Trump. He joins us from Washington. Ambassador Jeffrey, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on Al-Arabiya English.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, I'd just like to ask you, first of all, to cast your mind back to this day in 2024. What was your reaction when you got the news that Bashar al-Assad had fled the country?
I couldn't believe that the efforts, however sporadic and at times ineffective by the United States and much of the international community, the Arabs, Turkey and others, to end this horror actually was coming about, and how much this meant to the 25 million Syrian people who had suffered so much in the civil war of over a decade. That's what I first thought of. Secondly, how strategically important this was for the region, because it broke the back of the Shia crescent that Iran had used to manage its proxy empire throughout the Middle East.
Yeah, and during these last 12 months, I'm wondering, you know, just starting from the latest evidence we have, which is these videos that our channel has obtained of Bashar al-Assad driving around, appearing to mock the people of Syria, mocking, it would even appear, the Russian president in one of the videos, and combined with the prison records, the documents that have come to light. I mean, what more do you think we've learned about the dark workings of the Assad regime these last 12 months?
We knew a lot. One of the nice things about this anniversary is that the U.S. Congress is lifting the Caesar sanctions, which were really inhibiting the economic development of the new Syria. But they're named after Caesar, the code name of an individual who years ago smuggled out tens of thousands of pictures of what was going on. The world knew about this. 12 million people displaced, half the population, 600,000 at least killed. Yet look at the indignation and outcry about what's happened in Gaza compared to how little about what happened in Syria, which was of far greater geostrategic importance.
You mentioned that there's a comparison being made with Gaza, but the difference between Gaza and Syria is that there was this total denial from the Assad regime. Everything you accused them of was fake news. And now, at last, there seems to be, really indisputable evidence in the public domain.
Again, to its credit, the UN created, at one or another point, 3 separate commissions to look into this. And they came to the same conclusion we in Washington had, that the Assad regime was using, along with the Iranians, Lebanese Hezbollah, and the Russians, incredible brutality, including chemical weapons, to pursue this war. And thus, beyond all the other strategic reasons for the very humanitarian survival of the Syrian people, we had to at least stop the fighting, which we had done pretty much by the end of 2018, but pursue a campaign to change dramatically the Assad regime, which in the end meant getting rid of Assad.
I want to pick up on one of the things you said at the beginning about regional stability, because we've heard analysts before on this channel saying that a stable Syria means a stable region. It sounds like you'd agree with that assessment.
Absolutely. Syria, again, was the linchpin of Iran's regional network of proxy states and movements. But it was also the linchpin of the Sunni extremist terrorist reaction to that, the Islamic State. It was created during the civil war. So among the many bad things emerging from the Syrian civil war was the Islamic State. So you had the 2 biggest threats to stability in the region over the past 20 years focused in Syria. That has all changed. Obviously, we're keeping our fingers crossed, but it's been a year now. Al-Sharaa and his government have not done any of the stupid things we've seen in Yemen, in Libya, in Iraq after similar, quote, liberations. And I think that the future looks promising.
Right, and President Trump has made a real point of bringing President al-Sharaa into the fold. They've met 3 times in the last 12 months. And glowing praise, President Trump described President al-Sharaa as a young, attractive, tough guy. Why do you think President Trump took such a shine to the 43-year-old president of Syria?
First, Trump likes tough guys. Second, the administration, initially the Trump administration, had a hands-off attitude towards al-Sharaa and the new Syrian government, in contrast to the very active efforts by the Biden administration in its last weeks to embrace al-Sharaa, lift some of the terrorist designations, and start a new path. That was stopped initially in the Trump administration, and frankly, I think it was Trump himself, urged on by the Saudi Crown Prince and President Erdogan, who took that decision, frankly, over a disputing bureaucracy.
Okay, and just lastly, I mean, all things considered, 14 years of warfare, 54 years of Assad regime leadership. Clearly, there are going to be some scars and some divisions, but all things considered, how do you think Syria is faring?
Quite well. As we know, there was violence involving the Druze in the south and the Alawites in the far west of the country, but the government has managed to tamp down that violence between various groups and is actually investigating it. But another indicator is the federal forces moved into Afrin, a Kurdish ethnic area in the west of the country. Most of the rest of the Kurds are in the east, that have been taken over by a pro-Turkish militia. And the Kurds were basically oppressed. The government has moved in and has improved the situation for this minority significantly. That will help with the integration of the much larger group of Kurds in the east. So they're taking good steps. What we need to do is speak as an international community with one voice on what we will do for this state and government and what we expect them to do in return. That's the most important thing, remaining united.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us, Ambassador James Jeffrey. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Well, that is all we have time for on Global News today. Thank you very much indeed for watching. We look forward to seeing you again tomorrow with some more exclusive interviews. Until then, bye-bye.